Now listen closely. Because fortunes rarely begin with luck, they begin with a decision. A quiet decision, made alone. Often with a book in hand. Not a book for information. A book for transformation. 2 volumes. Simple. Unassuming. Yet powerful enough to rewire priorities. Powerful enough to change income, direction, and identity. Most people read to escape. A few read to awaken. And when the right ideas enter the mind, they never leave the same way. What you are about to hear is not about pages or paper. It is about the moment thinking changes. The moment effort gains direction. The moment discipline finds a reason. Stay with me. Because wealth always starts here. Wealth does not begin in the bank account, the business, the market, or the opportunity, because all of those are downstream results, not starting points. Wealth begins in the way a person thinks on an ordinary day when no one is watching, when there is no applause, and when comfort would be easier than effort. Disciplined thinking is the invisible architecture behind every visible result, and without it, money tends to arrive temporarily and leave permanently. Most people look for wealth in external circumstances, yet circumstances merely respond to the internal order or disorder of the mind. A disciplined mind creates alignment between values, actions, and long-term outcomes, while an undisciplined mind drifts, reacts, and negotiates with mediocrity. The difference between the two is not intelligence, luck, or background, but the willingness to govern one's thoughts with intention instead of impulse. Disciplined thinking begins with the refusal to live mentally scattered. It means deciding what matters and then thinking in harmony with that decision every day. It is the ability to say, this is important, and therefore I will give it mental priority, even when distractions are louder and easier. An undisciplined mind jumps from idea to idea, emotion to emotion, and excuse to excuse, while a disciplined mind chooses focus, repetition, and consistency. Wealth favors the latter because money follows value, and value is created by sustained, thoughtful effort over time. No fortune is built by accidental thinking. Every lasting financial result is preceded by a clear philosophy about work, time, responsibility, and growth. One of the first disciplines of wealthy thinking is long-term perspective. The disciplined thinker trains the mind to value tomorrow without neglecting today. This person asks different questions than the average individual. Instead of asking, what feels good now? The question becomes, what will this produce later? This shift alone separates scarcity from abundance. When the mind consistently considers consequences, patience replaces impulsiveness, and strategy replaces reaction. Small daily decisions, when filtered through long-term thinking, compound into extraordinary results. This is not dramatic or glamorous, but it is powerful because the future always rewards those who prepare for it quietly. Another essential aspect of disciplined thinking is personal responsibility. A wealthy mindset does not blame the economy, the government, the market, or other people for financial results. Blame is mentally expensive because it consumes energy that could be invested in improvement. Disciplined thinkers accept total responsibility for their outcomes, not as a form of self-criticism, but as a position of power. When responsibility is accepted, control is regained. When control is regained, progress becomes possible. Wealth grows where responsibility lies, because responsibility forces the mind to search for solutions instead of excuses. Disciplined thinking also requires emotional control. Money decisions made emotionally are often destructive, while money decisions made thoughtfully tend to be constructive. The disciplined mind learns to pause, evaluate, and choose rather than react. It understands that emotions are temporary, but decisions are often permanent. Fear, excitement, impatience, and comparison can all sabotage financial progress if they are allowed to dominate thinking. The individual who builds wealth learns to think clearly under pressure, to remain steady during uncertainty, and to avoid making decisions simply to relieve emotional discomfort. This emotional maturity is a mental discipline that protects wealth as much as it creates it. Another cornerstone of disciplined thinking is the deliberate selection of ideas. The mind is influenced by what it repeatedly consumes, and disciplined thinkers guard their mental environment carefully. They choose books, conversations, and influences that elevate thinking rather than reinforce limitation. This is not arrogance, it is self-respect. Just as disciplined nutrition produces a healthy body, disciplined mental input produces a productive philosophy. When the mind is nourished with ideas about growth, responsibility, value creation, and persistence, it begins to operate at a higher standard. Over time, that standard expresses itself through income, opportunities, and influence. Wealth-oriented thinking also involves disciplined self-talk. What a person repeatedly tells themselves becomes the lens through which reality is interpreted. An undisciplined mind speaks in terms of limitation, difficulty, and defeat, while a disciplined mind speaks in terms of learning, progress, and possibility. This does not mean ignoring reality. It means interpreting reality in a way that encourages action instead of paralysis. When challenges arise, the disciplined thinker does not say, "This is impossible," but instead asks, "What must I become to handle this?" That question alone expands capability and invites growth. Disciplined thinking further expresses itself through standards. Wealth does not grow comfortably in a mind that tolerates inconsistency and excuses. Standards define what is acceptable, and disciplined thinkers raise their standards deliberately. They decide how they will use their time, how they will perform their work, how they will manage their finances, and how they will respond to adversity. These standards reduce internal negotiation. Instead of debating whether to act, the disciplined mind already knows what it expects of itself. This clarity conserves energy and increases momentum, both of which are essential for long-term wealth creation. Another critical element is the discipline of learning. Wealth is rarely the result of what someone already knows, but of their commitment to continuous improvement. A disciplined thinker views education as a lifelong responsibility, not a phase that ends with formal schooling. They study principles, not just tactics. They seek understanding, not shortcuts. This learning discipline ensures that as circumstances change, the individual remains adaptable and relevant. Money flows toward those who can solve valuable problems, and disciplined learning expands the range of problems a person can solve. Disciplined thinking also shapes how setbacks are interpreted. Financial progress inevitably includes mistakes, losses, and delays. Undisciplined mind sees these as evidence of failure, while the disciplined mind sees them as feedback. This distinction determines whether a person quits or adjusts by interpreting setbacks as lessons rather than verdicts. Disciplined thinkers maintain forward motion. They do not allow temporary results to redefine their long-term identity. This resilience is not emotional toughness alone. It is a disciplined philosophy that separates events from meaning. Ultimately, disciplined thinking creates internal order. It aligns beliefs with goals, actions with values, and habits with vision. When the mind is ordered, behavior becomes consistent. And when behavior becomes consistent, results become predictable. Wealth is attracted to predictability because it thrives on systems, habits, and reliability. A disciplined mind builds systems for earning, saving, investing, and giving. These systems reduce reliance on willpower and emotion, making success repeatable rather than accidental. The most important truth about disciplined thinking is that it is a choice renewed daily. No one is born with it fully developed, and no one maintains it without effort. It is built through small, deliberate acts of mental governance, repeated over time. Each day presents an opportunity to think slightly better, slightly clearer, and slightly more intentionally than before. Those small improvements accumulate, just like interest, until the results appear dramatic to those who did not witness the process. Wealth begins the moment a person decides to think on purpose, to think with direction, and to think with standards that reflect the life they intend to build. Most people approach books as a form of entertainment, a temporary escape from routine, pressure, or boredom. They read casually, inconsistently, and without expectation of change. When the book ends, so does the influence. This approach may provide comfort, but it rarely produces transformation. The individual who becomes wealthy through reading approaches books differently. To them, a book is not a pastime, but a private mentor, a silent teacher available on demand, capable of compressing decades of experience into a few hours of focused attention. This shift in perception marks a turning point because once books are treated as mentors, reading becomes purposeful, selective, and deeply practical. A mentor is someone who influences thinking, behavior, and standards. When a book is treated as a mentor, it is not skimmed or consumed passively. It is studied, it is questioned, it is revisited. The reader approaches it with humility, recognizing that the author has walked a path they may not yet understand. This mindset alone elevates the reader because it positions learning as a discipline rather than a diversion. Instead of asking, "Is this enjoyable?" the question becomes, "What can this teach me that I can apply?" That single question transforms reading from leisure into leverage. Books used as mentors provide something rare and powerful: access to disciplined thinking. Within their pages are philosophies, principles, mistakes, and victories that would otherwise take a lifetime to discover independently. The wealthy reader understands that time is the most valuable asset, and learning from books is a way to borrow time from those who have already paid the price. When a person learns from another's experience, they avoid unnecessary errors and accelerate progress. This is not imitation, but intelligent adaptation. The reader extracts principles and applies them to their own circumstances, creating original results informed by proven wisdom. Another defining trait of treating books as mentors is intentional selection. Entertainment reading follows mood, curiosity, or trend. Mentorship reading follows purpose. The disciplined reader chooses books aligned with the person they are becoming and the results they are pursuing. If the goal is financial independence, books on discipline, value creation, leadership, economics and personal philosophy take priority. This does not mean abandoning enjoyment entirely, but it does mean recognizing that mental diet shapes mental performance. Just as athletes choose nutrition based on performance, high performers choose reading based on growth. When books become mentors, rereading becomes essential. Entertainment is rarely revisited because its value is consumed once. Mentorship material, however, reveals deeper insight with repetition. Each reading meets the reader at a new level of awareness, experience, and responsibility. A principle that once seemed abstract becomes practical. A sentence once overlooked becomes foundational. This layered understanding compounds over time, gradually reshaping decisions, habits, and expectations. Wealthy individuals often credit a small number of books, not because they read them once, but because they lived with them, allowing the ideas to mature alongside their own development. Treating books as mentors also requires disciplined reflection. Reading alone does not change behavior. Thinking about what is read does. Reflection bridges the gap between information and transformation. The serious reader pauses to ask how an idea applies to their life, their finances, their relationships, and their future. They consider what must be adjusted, strengthened, or eliminated. This reflective process turns abstract ideas into personal strategy. Without reflection, even the best book remains intellectual entertainment. With reflection, it becomes a blueprint. Another critical difference between entertainment reading and mentorship reading is accountability. A mentor challenges, confronts, and stretches the learner. When books are treated as mentors, they are allowed to do the same. The reader does not resist uncomfortable ideas or dismiss demanding principles. Instead, they accept that growth requires discomfort and that challenge is a sign of value, not a flaw. Many people abandon powerful books because the message threatens their current habits or beliefs. The disciplined reader leans in, recognizing that resistance often signals relevance. Books used as mentors influence standards. They quietly raise the bar for what the reader considers acceptable in effort, discipline, and performance. Over time, this elevation of standards reshapes behavior. When a person regularly exposes themselves to high-level thinking, mediocrity becomes harder to tolerate. Excuses lose credibility. Laziness becomes uncomfortable. This internal shift is one of the most significant benefits of mentorship reading, because wealth is rarely built at low standards. Higher standards demand higher performance, and higher performance produces higher value. Another advantage of treating books as mentors is independence of learning. A person no longer waits for formal instruction, permission, or perfect circumstances to grow. They take ownership of their education. This independence is empowering because it removes external limitations. Regardless of background, location, or resources, anyone with access to books can upgrade their thinking. This democratization of mentorship is one of the most overlooked opportunities in personal development. Those who recognize it gain a significant advantage over those who wait to be taught. Mentorship reading also fosters clarity. Many people struggle financially not because they lack effort, but because their effort lacks direction. Books that focus on principles help organize thinking. They clarify priorities, reveal cause, and affect relationships, and provide frameworks for decision-making. With clearer thinking comes better choices, and better choices accumulate into better results. Confusion is expensive, and clarity is profitable. Books, when approached correctly, are tools for reducing confusion and increasing intentionality. Over time, books as mentors contribute to identity change. A person begins to see themselves differently as they absorb new philosophies. They adopt the language, values, and perspectives of high achievers. This identity shift is subtle but profound because behavior naturally follows identity. When someone begins to think like a disciplined, responsible, growth-oriented individual, their actions align accordingly. Wealth grows most easily when identity and action are aligned, and books are one of the most efficient ways to facilitate that alignment. It is also important to recognize that mentorship reading is cumulative. One book builds upon another, creating a mental library of principles that interact and reinforce each other. Ideas connect, patterns emerge, and understanding deepens. This compounding effect mirrors the nature of wealth itself. Just as money grows through accumulation and reinvestment, thinking grows through repeated exposure and integration. Those who read widely but shallowly may gather information, but those who read selectively and deeply build wisdom. Ultimately, treating books as mentors reflects a respect for personal growth and a commitment to becoming more than one currently is. It signals a refusal to rely solely on trial and error and a willingness to learn deliberately. Wealth is rarely the result of a single idea. It is the outcome of a refined philosophy applied consistently. Books, when honored as mentors, provide the raw material for that philosophy. They challenge assumptions, expand vision, and reinforce discipline, shaping the inner world that eventually manifests in the outer one. When reading becomes a form of apprenticeship rather than amusement, progress accelerates, perspective sharpens, and the path toward abundance becomes clearer and more intentional. Money grows through arithmetic, but wealth grows through ideas. This distinction is subtle yet decisive because arithmetic accumulation depends on circumstances while ideas compound regardless of starting point. An individual with limited resources but superior ideas can outperform someone with abundant resources and limited thinking. Ideas shape perception, and perception shapes decision making. When the quality of ideas improves, the quality of choices improves. And when choices improve, results follow naturally. This is why ideas compound faster than money, because they influence every financial action long before money ever enters the equation. An idea, once understood and applied, continues to produce value without requiring repeated effort. Money, by contrast, must be protected, managed, and often reinvested to grow. A powerful idea can be applied across situations, industries, and stages of life. It adapts, it multiplies. A principle about discipline, value creation, or leverage can generate returns for decades, while a sum of money, if mismanaged, can disappear in months. This enduring productivity makes ideas the true engine of wealth, with money acting only as a tool that responds to direction. The compounding effect of ideas begins internally. When a person adopts a superior idea, it alters how they interpret information, evaluate opportunities, and respond to challenges. This internal shift occurs immediately, even if external results take time to appear. A new idea about responsibility may change how a person approaches work tomorrow. A new idea about time may change how evenings are spent. A new idea about value may change how income is earned. Each of these changes initiates a chain reaction, where one improved decision leads to another, creating momentum that grows quietly but steadily. Unlike money, ideas do not depreciate with use. In fact, they strengthen through application. Each time an idea is practiced, it becomes clearer, more refined, and more effective. This refinement increases its yield. For example, an idea about disciplined planning becomes more valuable as one gains experience applying it. Over time, what began as a simple concept evolves into a sophisticated system. Money alone cannot do this. Money can grow, but it does not inherently educate or refine itself. Ideas, when engaged, develop intelligence and precision. Another reason ideas compound faster than money is that they influence multiple areas simultaneously. A single idea about personal standards can improve work performance, financial management, health habits, and relationships. This multi-dimensional impact accelerates progress because improvement is not isolated to one domain. Money, on the other hand, typically impacts a narrow range of outcomes unless guided by strong ideas. Without disciplined thinking, increased income often leads to increased consumption rather than increased capability. Ideas ensure that growth is structural rather than superficial. Ideas also scale without limitation. Money is constrained by market conditions, investment vehicles, and external variables. Ideas, however, can be scaled infinitely through communication, teaching, and leadership. When an idea is shared, it does not diminish, it multiplies. This scalability allows individuals who master ideas to create value far beyond their personal effort. Leaders, entrepreneurs, and educators leverage ideas to influence systems, organizations, and cultures. Wealth generated at this level is not the result of working harder, but of thinking better and sharing that thinking effectively. Another powerful aspect of ideas is their resilience. Economic conditions fluctuate, industries change, and technologies evolve, but foundational ideas remain relevant. Principles such as discipline, delayed gratification, service, and continuous learning apply across eras. Those who anchor their financial strategy in principles rather than tactics adapt more easily to change. When circumstances shift, they do not panic because their ideas provide a stable framework for adjustment. This adaptability protects wealth and enables continued growth even in uncertain environments. Ideas also compound through association. When a person adopts high-level ideas, they naturally gravitate toward environments and relationships that reinforce those ideas. This shift in association further accelerates growth. Conversations improve, opportunities expand, collaboration becomes more strategic. Over time, the individual's network reflects their thinking, and that network introduces new ideas, creating a virtuous cycle. Money can attract people temporarily, but ideas attract alignment and synergy, which are far more productive in the long term. The speed at which ideas compound is also influenced by humility. A mind open to learning compounds faster than a mind convinced it already knows enough. Wealthy thinkers remain students of life, constantly refining their understanding. Each new insight builds upon the last, creating exponential growth in capability. This compounding does not require large investments, only consistent curiosity and application. In contrast, money compounding often requires significant capital, time, and favorable conditions. Ideas require only attention and effort. Ideas also reduce friction. Clear thinking simplifies decision making, reduces waste, and minimizes costly errors. When a person operates with sound principles, fewer resources are lost to confusion, impulse, or misalignment. This efficiency increases the effective return on every dollar earned. Two individuals with the same income can experience vastly different financial trajectories based solely on the quality of their ideas. One leaks value through poor decisions, while the other amplifies value through thoughtful strategy. Another advantage of ideas is that they create leverage. A well-formed idea can produce results disproportionate to the effort invested. For instance, an idea about systems can replace hours of labor with a process that runs automatically. An idea about delegation can multiply productivity by involving others. An idea about value creation can increase income without increasing time commitment. This leverage is the hallmark of wealth, and it originates in thinking, not in capital. Ideas also shape identity, and identity drives behavior. When a person internalizes ideas about growth, responsibility, and contribution, they begin to see themselves differently. This self-concept influences choices consistently and subconsciously. Over time, behavior aligned with a strong identity produces predictable success. Money does not change identity reliably. In many cases, it amplifies existing traits. Ideas, however, can transform identity, making sustainable wealth possible. The compounding nature of ideas is often underestimated because their early effects are subtle. There is rarely an immediate, dramatic payoff. Instead, the benefits accumulate quietly, much like interest in the early stages. This invisibility causes many people to abandon the process prematurely. Those who persist, however, eventually reach a tipping point where results accelerate. At that stage, the growth appears sudden, but it is the product of long-term intellectual investment. Ultimately, ideas are the source code of wealth. They determine how money is earned, managed, multiplied, and preserved. While money can be lost and regained, ideas, once truly understood, remain available for repeated use. They guide behavior across changing circumstances and provide a foundation for continuous progress. When a person commits to cultivating high-quality ideas and applying them consistently, they activate a compounding process more powerful than any financial instrument, a process that continues to generate returns long after the initial effort has been made. Every financial outcome is first a philosophical outcome. Long before income levels rise or fall, a set of beliefs is already in place, quietly determining what a person expects, tolerates, and pursues. Personal philosophy is the lens through which opportunity is interpreted and effort is justified or avoided. It governs how individuals think about work, money, time, responsibility, and success. Whether consciously chosen or unconsciously absorbed, this philosophy acts as an internal operating system, shaping financial destiny with remarkable consistency. A person's philosophy determines what they believe is possible for them. If someone believes wealth is reserved for a fortunate few, their behavior will unconsciously align with limitation. They may work hard, but without strategic intention. They may earn, but without disciplined management. Conversely, if someone believes wealth is the result of learnable principles applied consistently, their behavior aligns with growth. They seek understanding. They invest in themselves. They persist through difficulty. These contrasting outcomes are not accidents. They are the natural expression of belief systems translated into action. Personal philosophy also defines the meaning of money. For some, money represents security. for others' freedom, for others' stress or conflict. These meanings influence behavior in powerful ways. If money is associated with fear, it is often avoided or mishandled. If it is associated with status, it may be spent to impress rather than to build. A healthy philosophy frames money as a tool for value exchange and personal development. This perspective encourages responsible earning, thoughtful spending, and purposeful investing. When money is seen as a servant rather than a master, it becomes easier to manage and multiply. Another critical element of personal philosophy is the attitude toward work. Some view work as a burden to be endured, others as a platform for contribution and growth. This distinction has enormous financial implications. Those who resent work often do the minimum required, limiting both skill development and opportunity. Those who see work as a chance to develop competence and character tend to exceed expectations, creating disproportionate value. Wealth flows toward value, not effort alone. A philosophy that honors contribution naturally attracts greater reward. Time management is also governed by philosophy. Individuals who believe time is abundant tend to waste it, while those who view time as precious invest it carefully. This belief shapes daily routines, priorities, and long-term planning. A disciplined philosophy recognizes that time is the non-renewable resource from which all wealth is derived. How time is allocated determines what skills are developed, what relationships are built, and what opportunities are pursued. Over years, these allocations compound into dramatically different financial outcomes. Personal philosophy further influences responses to adversity. Financial progress is rarely linear. It includes setbacks, failures, and uncertainty. A philosophy that interprets difficulty as punishment discourages persistence. One that interprets difficulty as education encourages resilience. This difference determines whether challenges become stopping points or stepping stones. Those who view adversity as feedback refine their approach and continue forward. Those who view it as unfairness often disengage. The philosophy adopted in moments of difficulty often decides long-term financial direction. Responsibility is another philosophical cornerstone. A philosophy that externalizes responsibility creates dependence and frustration. A philosophy that internalizes responsibility creates empowerment and initiative. When individuals believe they are the primary authors of their outcomes, they actively seek improvement, they acquire skills, adjust strategies, and take ownership of results. This proactive stance accelerates progress because it places control where action can occur. Wealth grows more easily in minds that accept responsibility without resentment. Personal philosophy also governs standards of living and performance. Standards determine what individuals consider acceptable in their work quality, financial habits, and personal conduct. Low standards invite inconsistency and excuse making, while high standards demand discipline and preparation. A philosophy that emphasizes excellence does not require perfection, but it does require integrity and effort. Over time, high standards create trust, reliability, and reputation, all of which have economic value. People and opportunities gravitate toward those who consistently meet elevated expectations. Another often overlooked aspect of philosophy is the belief about learning. Some believe education ends with formal schooling, while others see learning as a lifelong obligation. This belief dramatically affects earning potential. In a changing world, static knowledge quickly becomes obsolete. A growth-oriented philosophy prioritizes continuous learning, ensuring adaptability and relevance. This adaptability protects income streams and opens new avenues for value creation. Those who commit to learning remain competitive, while those who resist it gradually fall behind. Personal philosophy also shapes financial behavior through patience or impatience. A philosophy rooted in immediate gratification often undermines wealth through impulsive spending and short-term decisions. A philosophy grounded in delayed gratification supports saving, investing, and long-term planning. This patience is not deprivation, it is strategic choice. It reflects an understanding that meaningful rewards are built over time. Individuals who adopt this philosophy align their actions with future outcomes, allowing compounding to work in their favor. Identity is deeply connected to philosophy. What a person believes about who they are influences what they believe they deserve. If someone identifies as careless with money, they will behave accordingly. If they identify as disciplined and capable, their actions reflect that self-image. Philosophy shapes identity, and identity shapes behavior. Changing financial destiny often requires redefining self-concept at a philosophical level. When beliefs about capability and worth evolve, behavior follows naturally. The influence of personal philosophy extends beyond individual behavior to relationships and environments. People with similar philosophies tend to find each other. Over time, an individual's circle reflects their beliefs and values. This environment reinforces thinking, either accelerating growth or reinforcing limitation. A philosophy that values growth attracts mentors, collaborators, and opportunities. One that tolerates stagnation attracts comfort and familiarity. The financial implications of these environments are significant and enduring. Ultimately, personal philosophy is the root cause of financial destiny because it operates continuously and subconsciously. It informs thousands of small decisions that rarely seem significant in isolation, but become powerful in accumulation. Income, savings, investments, and opportunities are all downstream from how a person thinks about effort, responsibility, value, and time. Changing circumstances without changing philosophy produces temporary results at best. Lasting change requires a shift in the underlying beliefs that drive behavior. When an individual deliberately examines and refines their personal philosophy, they gain the ability to influence their future intentionally. By choosing beliefs that support growth, responsibility, learning, and contribution, they align their inner world with their desired outer results. Wealth then becomes a natural byproduct of a coherent philosophy expressed through consistent action rather than a random outcome dictated by chance or circumstance. Leverage is the ability to produce greater results from the same or even less effort. And among all forms of leverage available to an individual, self-education is the most accessible, durable, and compounding. It does not depend on position, capital, or permission. It begins the moment a person decides to take responsibility for what they know, how they think, and how they improve. While formal education provides foundations, it is self-education that determines how far those foundations are built upon. Wealth tends to follow those who continually upgrade their understanding because increased understanding expands capability. Self-education changes how problems are approached. An uneducated or undereducated mind often reacts emotionally to challenges, while an educated mind responds strategically. This difference is not about credentials, but about clarity. When someone studies principles of economics, communication, and value creation, they gain frameworks for decision making. These frameworks reduce guesswork and increase effectiveness. Each new concept becomes a tool that can be applied repeatedly, creating returns far beyond the initial time invested in learning. One of the most powerful aspects of self-education is that it shifts dependence into independence. Rather than waiting for instruction, opportunity, or rescue, the self-educated individual becomes proactive. They seek answers. They research solutions. They test ideas. This independence accelerates progress because it eliminates delay. When a question arises, they do not remain stuck, they learn. Over time, this habit creates momentum as each problem solved through learning increases confidence and competence. Self-education also enhances adaptability. Markets change, technologies evolve, and industries transform. Those who rely solely on past knowledge become vulnerable, while those who continuously educate themselves remain relevant. This relevance protects income and opens new pathways for growth. The ability to learn quickly becomes a competitive advantage, allowing individuals to pivot when necessary and capitalize on emerging opportunities. Wealth flows toward those who can adapt without losing direction. Another key benefit of self-education is improved judgment. Many financial mistakes are not caused by lack of effort, but by poor judgment. Judgment improves when understanding deepens. Studying history, human behavior, and cause and effect relationships sharpens perception. It enables individuals to see beyond immediate appearances and evaluate long-term implications. Better judgment leads to fewer costly errors and more strategic decisions, both of which have substantial financial impact. Self-education also increases earning power by expanding skill sets. Income is often a reflection of the value one can provide, and value increases with skill. Learning how to communicate more effectively, manage resources, lead people, or solve complex problems directly enhances marketability. These skills are transferable across roles and industries, providing stability and flexibility. Unlike a single job title, a robust skill set travels with the individual, ensuring that earning potential is not tied to one circumstance. Another often overlooked aspect of self-education is confidence. Confidence rooted in knowledge is stable and credible. When individuals understand their field and continue to deepen that understanding, they speak and act with authority. This confidence influences how others perceive them, opening doors to responsibility, leadership, and opportunity. Confidence earned through learning is different from bravado. It is quiet, grounded, and persuasive. It allows individuals to negotiate better, present ideas clearly, and take calculated risks. Self-education also encourages discipline. Learning consistently requires structure, commitment, and focus. These qualities spill over into other areas of life, including financial management. A person who can discipline themselves to read, study, and reflect regularly is more likely to discipline themselves to save, invest, and plan. The habit of learning reinforces the habit of intentional living, creating alignment between thought and action. The compounding effect of self-education is one of its most valuable features. Each new insight builds upon previous understanding, creating exponential growth in capability. This compounding is subtle at first, but becomes powerful over time. Many people underestimate its impact, because it does not produce immediate rewards. Those who persist eventually reach a level of insight and competence that appears exceptional to others, though it is simply the result of consistent intellectual investment. Self-education also fosters humility and curiosity. A commitment to learning acknowledges that there is always more to understand. This humility keeps the mind open and receptive. Curiosity drives exploration and innovation. Together, they prevent stagnation and encourage growth. Wealth creation benefits from this mindset because it thrives on improvement and innovation rather than complacency. Another advantage of self-education is that it aligns learning with personal goals. Formal education often follows standardized curricula, while self-education is customized. Individuals choose what to learn based on their aspirations, challenges, and interests. This relevance increases motivation and effectiveness. Learning becomes purposeful rather than obligatory, making it easier to sustain over time. Self-education also strengthens resilience. When faced with failure or uncertainty, a self-educated individual is more likely to seek understanding rather than retreat. They analyze what went wrong, learn from it, and adjust. This learning-based response to adversity transforms setbacks into progress. Over time, this resilience compounds, enabling sustained effort despite obstacles. Ultimately, self-education is the ultimate leverage because it enhances every other resource. Time is used more effectively. Money is managed more wisely. Relationships are navigated more skillfully. Opportunities are evaluated more accurately. The individual becomes more capable, more adaptable, and more valuable. Wealth becomes a natural consequence of this enhanced capability rather than a distant aspiration. When a person commits to self-education as a lifelong discipline, they place themselves on a path of continuous expansion. Each year, they think more clearly, decide more wisely, and act more effectively than before. This steady improvement compounds into significant advantage, allowing them to produce results disproportionate to their starting point and circumstances. Small decisions rarely announce their importance at the moment they are made. They appear ordinary, even insignificant, yet they are the building blocks of every extraordinary outcome. Wealth is not usually created by one dramatic breakthrough, but by a series of modest choices made consistently over time. Each small decision acts like a vote for a particular future, reinforcing habits, shaping character, and directing momentum. When these decisions align with discipline and purpose, they quietly construct a life of increasing value and opportunity. Every day presents countless decision points, most of which go unnoticed. How time is used in the early hours, how money is handled when it arrives, how effort is applied when motivation is low, and how challenges are interpreted in moments of pressure all matter. Individually, these choices seem trivial. Collectively, they form a pattern, and patterns determine outcomes. The individual who becomes wealthy understands that consistency is more powerful than intensity. They do not rely on occasional bursts of effort, but on steady, repeatable behaviors that compound. Small decisions influence habits, and habits shape destiny. A habit is simply a decision repeated so often it becomes automatic. When someone decides to read a few pages each day, save a small percentage of income, or improve a single skill incrementally, they are laying the foundation for significant change. These habits require little effort once established, yet their long-term impact is substantial. Over years, What began as minor discipline becomes a defining advantage, separating those who progress from those who stagnate. One of the reasons small decisions are so powerful is that they bypass resistance. Large changes often trigger fear, doubt, and procrastination. Small changes feel manageable and non-threatening. Choosing to improve slightly today feels easier than committing to a complete transformation. Yet these small improvements accumulate, creating momentum that eventually supports larger achievements. Wealth grows comfortably in environments where progress feels sustainable rather than overwhelming. Small financial decisions are especially influential. Choosing to spend modestly below one's means, even by a small margin, creates surplus. That surplus, when consistently invested or saved, grows through compounding. Conversely, small acts of financial indiscipline repeated daily erode stability. A few unnecessary expenses here, a neglected budget there, and over time the damage becomes significant. The difference between financial stress and financial security is often found not in income level, but in the quality of everyday decisions. Small decisions also shape mindset. Each disciplined choice reinforces self-trust and identity. When a person consistently follows through on small commitments, they begin to see themselves as reliable and capable. This identity shift influences future decisions, making discipline more natural and less forced. Conversely, repeated small acts of avoidance or excuse making weaken confidence and reinforce limitation. Over time, the internal narrative becomes self-fulfilling, either empowering or restraining progress. Consistency transforms small efforts into powerful systems. A system does not rely on mood or circumstance. It operates through structure. For example, a simple routine of planning the day each morning may take only minutes, yet it improves focus, productivity, and results. Over months and years, this structure compounds into efficiency and clarity. Systems built from small decisions reduce reliance on willpower, making success more predictable and less emotionally taxing. Another often overlooked aspect of small decisions is their directional influence. Each choice nudges life slightly in one direction or another. While the movement is subtle, direction matters more than speed. A small decision made daily in the right direction eventually leads far from the starting point. Likewise, small decisions made daily in the wrong direction quietly pull life away from desired outcomes. Many people do not fail dramatically, they drift slowly, unaware that their daily choices are guiding them elsewhere. Small decisions also influence opportunity. Opportunities tend to appear for those who are prepared, and preparation is the result of consistent behavior. Showing up on time, delivering quality work, following through on commitments, and maintaining integrity may seem basic, yet they build reputation. Reputation attracts trust, and trust attracts opportunity. These opportunities often appear sudden to outsiders, but they are the product of long-term consistency that began with small, disciplined actions. The compounding effect of small decisions mirrors the principle of interest. Early progress is modest and often invisible. This phase tests patience and belief. Many abandon the process here because results do not yet justify the effort emotionally. Those who persist eventually reach a point where results accelerate. At that stage, the growth appears dramatic, but it is simply the delayed return on accumulated discipline. This is why consistency is often misunderstood. Its greatest rewards arrive after most people have quit. Small decisions also protect against regression. Life inevitably includes disruptions, challenges, and uncertainty. Established habits provide stability during these periods. When discipline is built into daily routines, progress continues even when motivation fluctuates. This resilience prevents setbacks from becoming permanent. A person anchored by consistent habits recovers faster and maintains forward motion despite obstacles. Another important element is that small decisions are controllable. While external circumstances may be unpredictable, daily choices remain within personal control. Focusing on what can be controlled reduces frustration and increases effectiveness. Instead of waiting for ideal conditions, disciplined individuals act within their sphere of influence. This proactive approach creates momentum and reinforces the belief that progress is always possible, regardless of circumstance. Over time, small decisions also influence relationships. How one listens, communicates, and responds consistently shapes trust and connection. Strong relationships often lead to collaboration, mentorship, and opportunity, all of which have economic value. These relational benefits are rarely the result of grand gestures, but of consistent respect, reliability, and consideration expressed through everyday actions. Ultimately, the power of small decisions lies in their permanence. Each choice leaves a trace, shaping habits, identity, and direction. While no single decision determines destiny, the accumulation of decisions does. Wealth is built quietly through daily choices aligned with long-term values. Those who understand this principle stop searching for shortcuts and instead commit to consistency, knowing that the future is being constructed one decision at a time. Lifelong income is rarely the product of a single event, sudden breakthrough, or extraordinary stroke of luck. It is most often the outcome of a sequence of small, disciplined decisions that gradually shape skills, habits, reputation, and value over time. These decisions do not appear dramatic when they are made. They blend into daily life, quietly influencing direction. Yet their cumulative effect is powerful enough to determine whether income remains temporary or becomes sustainable for decades. At the core of lifelong income is the decision to prioritize value over convenience. This choice may show up in how a person approaches their work, choosing to learn the details instead of rushing through tasks, or in how they respond to responsibility, choosing ownership instead of avoidance. Each time value is prioritized, capability increases. Capability attracts demand, and demand creates income that does not disappear easily. People who earn consistently over long periods do so because they are consistently useful, and usefulness is built through countless small choices to improve rather than coast. One of the earliest small decisions that shapes lifelong income is how time is treated. Choosing to invest a portion of time each day into learning, skill development, or strategic thinking may seem minor, but over years it creates a widening gap in competence. While others spend that same time on distraction or comfort, the disciplined individual is quietly accumulating expertise. Expertise compounds. It increases earning potential, reduces replaceability, and creates leverage. Time invested wisely becomes income earned repeatedly. Another critical decision is how effort is applied. Many people expend energy without direction, mistaking activity for progress. The decision to apply effort thoughtfully, to ask whether an action builds a skill, strengthens a relationship, or enhances value, changes outcomes significantly. This intentional effort leads to mastery rather than burnout. Mastery is one of the most reliable sources of lifelong income because it creates differentiation. Those who are difficult to replace are rarely without opportunity. Small decisions also determine financial behavior early on. Choosing to save a modest portion of income, even when earnings are limited, establishes a habit of discipline. This habit matters more than the amount. Over time, disciplined saving creates capital, and capital creates options. Options allow for investment, entrepreneurship, and flexibility. Lifelong income is often supported by assets built gradually through consistent financial decisions rather than large, sudden gains. Reputation is another area shaped almost entirely by small decisions. Showing up prepared, meeting deadlines, communicating clearly, and acting with integrity may seem basic, yet these behaviors compound into trust. Trust is one of the most valuable economic assets. It leads to referrals, promotions, partnerships, and repeat opportunities. A trusted individual often earns income long after the initial effort because people prefer to work repeatedly with those who are reliable. Reputation, once established, continues to generate income with less effort over time. Skill stacking is another product of small decisions. Choosing to add one complementary skill at a time expands earning potential significantly. For example, combining technical ability with communication, leadership, or problem solving creates unique value. Each skill alone may offer moderate income, but together they multiply opportunities. This accumulation does not require drastic change, only consistent learning. Over years, the individual becomes versatile and adaptable, capable of earning across changing environments. Small decisions also influence mindset, which directly affects income sustainability. Choosing to view challenges as learning opportunities rather than threats builds resilience. Resilient individuals persist when others quit. Persistence allows skills and systems to mature. Income that lasts decades often survives early failures because the individual chose to continue refining rather than retreating. This mental discipline is built through repeated choices to respond constructively to difficulty. Another often underestimated decision is the choice of standards. Deciding what level of quality is acceptable in one's work influences income trajectory. High standards lead to excellence, and excellence attracts demand. This does not require perfection, but it does require care. When someone consistently delivers quality, they become known for it. That reputation commands higher compensation and longer-term engagement. Over time, income stabilizes and grows because it is tied to perceived value rather than effort alone. Relationships are also shaped by small decisions. Choosing to listen, to add value without immediate expectation, and to maintain professionalism builds strong networks. Networks are long-term income multipliers. Opportunities often flow through relationships rather than advertisements. The individual who nurtures relationships through consistent, respectful behavior benefits from a steady stream of possibilities. These opportunities often appear unexpectedly, yet they are rooted in years of small relational investments. Adaptability is another factor influenced by daily choices. Choosing to stay curious, to update skills, and to remain open to change protects income over time. Industries evolve and roles disappear. Those who resist learning eventually become obsolete. Those who adapt remain relevant. Lifelong income depends on the ability to evolve without losing direction. This ability is built through the habit of learning, maintained by small decisions to stay informed and capable. The decision to build systems rather than rely on effort alone also contributes to lifelong income. Systems create repeatability, whether it is a business process, an investment strategy, or a personal productivity routine. Systems reduce dependency on constant exertion. They allow income to continue even when attention shifts. Building systems begins with small steps, documenting processes, automating tasks, and refining workflows. Over time, these systems produce income with less direct involvement. Another subtle but powerful decision is choosing patience over urgency. Lifelong income is rarely compatible with impatience. Decisions driven by immediate gratification often undermine long-term stability. Choosing delayed rewards, reinvestment, and steady growth creates durability. This patience allows compounding to operate fully. The individual who remains committed through slow phases eventually benefits from acceleration that others never reach. Identity also plays a role. Each small decision reinforces self-perception. Acting responsibly builds an identity of competence. Acting consistently builds confidence. Acting with discipline builds self-trust. This identity influences future choices automatically. When someone sees themselves as capable and disciplined, they naturally make decisions that support sustainable income. This self-reinforcing cycle is powerful and enduring. Ultimately, lifelong income is not engineered in dramatic moments, but assembled quietly through daily choices. Each decision may appear insignificant, yet together they form habits, systems, skills, and relationships that continue to produce value long after the initial effort is forgotten. Those who understand this principle stop searching for shortcuts and instead focus on consistency, knowing that the income they seek tomorrow is being shaped by the decisions they make today. Success rarely arrives through a single dramatic habit, but it often reveals itself through quiet rituals practiced daily. Among these rituals, reading stands apart as one of the most consistent indicators of long-term growth and prosperity. Not casual reading driven by convenience or distraction, but intentional reading chosen as a daily discipline. When reading becomes a ritual, it shifts from something done occasionally to something done deliberately. And that shift changes how the mind is shaped over time. A ritual differs from a goal because it does not depend on motivation or mood. Goals can be postponed, but rituals are honored. When reading is treated as a daily ritual, it becomes non-negotiable, like eating or sleeping. This consistency matters because the mind responds to repetition. Ideas encountered repeatedly sink deeper, influence behavior more strongly, and gradually reshape perspective. Wealth-oriented thinking is rarely absorbed in a single sitting. It is cultivated through steady exposure to principles that reinforce discipline, responsibility, and vision. Daily reading acts as a form of mental calibration. Life constantly applies pressure through distractions, setbacks, and competing priorities. Without regular recalibration, thinking drifts towards short-term concerns and emotional reactions. Reading restores perspective. It reminds the individual of long-term goals, higher standards, and enduring principles. This daily reset keeps decisions aligned with intention rather than impulse. Over time, this alignment produces consistent progress instead of erratic results. One of the most powerful aspects of a reading ritual is its cumulative effect. A few pages a day may seem insignificant, Yet over a year, it amounts to several books. Over a decade, it represents a private education. This accumulation compounds quietly, much like interest. Early on, the benefits are subtle, often limited to improved vocabulary or clarity. As time passes, the impact becomes structural. Thinking becomes more strategic. Decisions become more deliberate. Opportunities are evaluated with greater discernment. This is not accidental. It is the natural outcome of repeated intellectual investment. Reading as a ritual also strengthens discipline. Choosing to read daily requires consistency, especially when time feels scarce or energy is low. This discipline reinforces self-control, which transfers into other areas of life. The individual who can honor a reading ritual is more likely to honor commitments to saving, planning, and skill development. Discipline rarely exists in isolation. When cultivated in one area, it spreads, raising overall standards of behavior. Another benefit of daily reading is exposure to higher level thinking. The mind tends to reflect its environment. If daily input consists primarily of noise, entertainment, and reactive information, thinking becomes shallow and fragmented. A reading ritual introduces structured, purposeful ideas into the mental environment. Over time, these ideas replace limiting beliefs and refine judgment. This shift influences how problems are framed and solved. Better problems lead to better solutions, and better solutions create value. Reading daily also nurtures patience. In a world conditioned for speed and instant results, reading requires focus and presence. This slows the mind in a constructive way, encouraging depth over immediacy. Patience developed through reading supports long-term planning and delayed gratification, both essential for wealth creation. Those who lack patience often sabotage progress by abandoning sound strategies prematurely. A reading ritual reinforces the understanding that meaningful growth unfolds over time. The ritual aspect of reading also creates identity reinforcement. Each day the individual reads, they reinforce the belief that they are a learner, a thinker, and a person committed to growth. Identity shapes behavior automatically. When someone sees themselves as a disciplined reader, they naturally seek understanding and improvement in other areas. This self-concept supports continuous development and reduces resistance to effort. Reading daily also sharpens language and communication. Clear thinking depends on clear language. Exposure to well-structured ideas improves the ability to articulate thoughts, negotiate effectively, and influence others. These skills have direct economic value. Individuals who communicate clearly are better positioned to lead, persuade, and collaborate. Over time, this communicative advantage translates into greater opportunity and income stability. A daily reading ritual also provides access to mentorship without limitation. Through books, an individual can learn from thinkers, leaders, and strategists across time and discipline. This access is not constrained by geography or status. Each reading session becomes a conversation with experience and insight. Over years, this accumulated mentorship shapes philosophy and judgment, creating a depth of understanding that would otherwise require decades of trial and error. Another important aspect of reading as a ritual is its protective function. It guards against stagnation. As circumstances improve, complacency can set in. Regular reading challenges comfort by introducing new perspectives and higher standards. It reminds the individual that growth is ongoing and that success must be maintained intentionally. This continuous stimulation prevents decline and encourages reinvestment in personal development. Reading daily also encourages reflection. Unlike passive consumption, reading invites pause and consideration. This reflection strengthens self-awareness and strategic thinking. It allows individuals to evaluate their choices, refine their goals, and adjust their direction. Reflection transforms information into insight. Insight guides action. Action, repeated consistently, produces results. The choice of material also matters. A ritual is most effective when aligned with purpose. Reading material focused on principles, personal responsibility, economics, leadership, and discipline reinforces a wealth-oriented mindset. This does not require rigid restriction, but it does require intention. The mind becomes shaped by what it repeatedly absorbs. A disciplined reading ritual ensures that this shaping supports growth rather than distraction. Another subtle benefit of daily reading is emotional regulation. Exposure to thoughtful ideas creates distance from immediate stress. It places challenges within a broader context, reducing reactivity. This emotional steadiness supports better decision making, particularly in financial matters where impulsive choices can be costly. Calm thinking preserves capital and protects progress. Over time, reading as a ritual becomes less about information and more about alignment. It aligns daily thinking with long-term values. It aligns effort with vision. It aligns identity with aspiration. This alignment reduces internal conflict and increases focus. When mind and direction are aligned, progress accelerates naturally. Ultimately, reading as a daily success ritual is not about finishing books, but about shaping the mind consistently. Each session adds a small layer of clarity, discipline, and perspective. These layers accumulate, forming a mental foundation strong enough to support sustained success. Those who commit to this ritual quietly separate themselves over time, not through dramatic effort, but through steady intellectual refinement that influences every decision and every outcome that follows.